What would you do if some miracle happened? What's it like?
What you mean?
Shit, I knew you never robbed the place, you faker.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of How to Be a Movie Snob. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Hey, thanks.
Glad to be here.
You're not talking to me.
Oh, I guess.
Who are you talking to? Are you talking to the audience?
You know what,
you talking to
Pat?
us?
We're glad you're here too.
Be specific.
I know
Thank you. Thank you.
Mariah
finally.
is not sincere about it, but I am. I'm glad you're there, not here. I'm really glad you are.
There's one thing we can agree on tonight. Is that Patrick is at a safe distance.
Hey, right back at you, you know?
Folks, we are glad to be here. I am Seth,
Mariah.
joined in person with Ms. Mariah, and from afar, Mr.
Pat.
But close to our hearts, close to our very cold, dark hearts.
Right here.
Oh,
Brother.
that's nice. I always feel weird saying Pat because it's so short.
Yeah,
Like there should be more, and then Patrick feels weird.
Patrick. But
So I'm always uncomfortable whenever I have to say my own name
you know that's
in this little intro.
as someone who's
You need to come up
Are
with
you
a tagline.
as someone
or
who's had almost 4 decades of life here on Earth, I feel like you
More
should
than
not
4.
be uncomfortable with your own name. I feel like that is
I mean, I'm comfortable
that's a
with
personal
it.
issue that we may not address here on the show tonight.
Yes,
you
I'm
were gonna-
uncomfortable saying it either in a weird little staccato phrase or
Yeah, right. Yeah.
weirdly formal.
Yeah, this is.
And I don't know how to land it.
You know, life's hard sometimes, Pat.
You know,
Speaking of life being hard,
yeah.
man,
what a
19
segue.
I mean the
The Great
tough being
Depression,
poor. I mean,
right?
the Great Depression, am I right? Just a rough time. You just sometimes
Very
it just
rough.
makes you want to, rebel and be like a rebellious teenager from the 60s.
Yeah. I just want to
Look like one.
put my beret on and
Have some lovely, perfect hair.
yeah.
Have the most beautiful man of the era, arguably.
And ruin a lot of hats.
I'm not gonna lie, guys. I wanted to wear another suit and another great hat, but wearing these darn headphones while wearing a hat that doesn't cover your head is really hard.
Yeah, headphones and fedoras.
It's really tough. The fedora,
Don't mix.
this movie is not the beginning of fedoras because obviously we had all of the actual 20s and 30s.
Sure.
Where some great fedora
I believe
wearing
that's accurate.
happened. But this was a great revival into the fedora wearing. And this is not the first time our lead actor has worn a fedora in an iconic role. He relives that fedora in a brighter color,
Yellow.
and it is memorable.
Once every 10 years to keep the rights to that look, I believe.
Seriously. That's
Yeah,
real.
he'll do like a 5-minute
Stop it.
little interstitial just to be like, I'm still using the character.
That's not
I had
true.
to use the character.
Stop it.
It is.
That is amazing.
Look up
Terrible.
Leonard Maltin interviews Dick Tracy and be a little bit sad.
Stop it.
Look at petty man puts yellow hat on.
Oh, you got. I mean,
That's
that's
funny.
how he got this movie. He just kind of waited till he got his opportunity. So, guys, if you can't tell, we're talking about Mr. Humble himself, Warren Beatty, and the easiest actress in Hollywood to work with, Annette Bening. Sorry, sarcasm is a little thick here. Guys, we're talking about the 1967 classic. 67? 68? 67.
67.
Miss Bonnie and Mr. Clyde. Bonnie and Clyde.
And that's Faye Dunaway, by
That's
the way.
Who did I say? Oh, yeah, Faye Dunaway.
Annette Bening.
Did I
Yeah.
say
Which
Annette
is
Bening? That's
Warren
His
Beatty.
wife.
You
That's
did.
funny.
I
Annette
thought you were
Bening,
being ironic
I
or
wasn't.
something.
I was just mistaken because I just watched.
It just got quiet.
I just rewatched the Oscars where Warren Beatty had read the wrong name.
Oh, yeah.
And then
With Faye Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway. But then they cut to Annette Bening in the crowd. So I was like, so yeah, I apologize, but no, Annette Bening, you are actually. I have not heard bad things about people working with you. However, Miss Faye Dunaway, Whoo! I just watched a little bit of that HBO special on Faye Dunaway.
I watched it too.
Oh,
did you?
my. She
Yeah.
is...
I saw that it
rough.
existed.
It's
and
rough.
I did not watch it.
And like
It
out
does
the get-go, you're like,
exist.
oh, you are just a lot. You're a lot to handle. You're just a lot
Let's
to handle.
just say she's not so far from Mommy Dearest.
No.
She didn't beat children with wire hangers, so as far as we know.
Oh, that's nice.
Pretty
Well,
sure.
yeah, but you don't want to know.
High bar.
Yeah, high or
Mm-hmm.
skinny bar. I don't know. It's a hanger. So, guys, this movie. Before we get into it, just kind of some cultural things. It did not win the Oscar for the year, but it was considered by many the cultural moment. This is arguably the entrance, the beginning, the kind of the grand kick through the door of new Hollywood in 1967. This, along with The Graduate, were considered kind of the new up-and-comers that are changing the way Hollywood is done. I'm not going to lie, I finished a book, and if you know me well, you know that I actually listened to a book, not read it. But a lot of my information will be coming from this lovely book called Pictures at a Revolution, 5 Movies and the Birth of a New Hollywood by Mr. Mark Harris. It was excellent.
Ooh.
I could not put it down. And by put it down, I mean listen to my kids. I just put in my earbuds and continue to listen through my book. Because that's the kind of father I am. Father of the year. But guys, this movie I was stoked to watch because guess what? I had never seen it before. This is the first time I've seen Bonnie and Clyde.
I think same.
Really?
Because of watching a lot of award shows and movie channels, I've seen clips of it.
Oh, for sure. Oh,
many a time,
gosh,
right? And so
yes.
there's some amount of like, have I seen this? But I don't think I've seen it
No,
actually in
I
its
don't.
entirety.
I
ever
don't think
before.
I had either.
guys, this is a movie we haven't all seen. We haven't done this in a while. This is like a first time in a
No,
while that we.
pretty special.
That's
Pretty
fun.
special.
That's pretty fun.
Also, do want to correct? This movie did win 2 Oscars.
It did, but
just
not did win Best
Picture.
Picture for
No.
sure. It won Best Editing, Best Cinematography. No, Best Cinematography.
Only
And
cinema.
Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah, cinematography and supporting actress. That's it.
She won.
It was nominated for a bunch of stuff. Yeah, isn't that
Wow.
surprising?
It's a little surprising.
old screamer.
I'm not gonna lie, and arguably
It's
the editing
A
was.
shrew of a woman.
Huh. Who won editing that year? I'm so interested.
I don't know.
I don't know. Look it up.
I think the editing was maybe a little too new Hollywood. For
Oh,
the
really?
time
Okay.
To
'Cause
win.
I feel like the editor should have got some mad credit on that.
Yeah.
But Faye,
Hey,
Faye,
should we-
She was a force. Yeah, go for it, Pat.
Well, I was going to say, should we just get into our
Let's
our
do it.
cold brews and hot takes
Okay, guys.
before we really get into the movie?
Well, let's get into the cold brews and hot takes.
Did we mention that we watched Bonnie and Clyde?
Yeah, Bonnie
We
and
did.
Clyde.
Eventually.
It's New Hollywood.
Okay.
It is there. It is
I
there.
lost it.
So
That is
so
what we watched.
We're gonna start.
right?
Yes, we're
it should be in the description of this video.
Somebody's
or
gonna
this
know before
podcast.
they listen, right?
for sure.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and Pat start us off with what beer are you drinking and what is your hot take for Bonnie and Clyde?
I'm still rocking a Lucille
Lucille.
IPA. Yep, by Georgetown Brewing.
Mm-hmm. Creature of habit.
And
Pat.
my hot take, which maybe isn't that hot, this movie made it tough. Surprisingly edgy still. This movie.
Oh,
I felt.
okay, yeah. Yeah.
Like I felt like, whoa, they're doing some stuff in here that is not easy to digest, per se. So that was I was pretty surprised by that.
Okay, I got a hot take. I don't know if I totally believe it because I'm kind of. But this is a classic. This is like where you get more points for style over substance.
Yeah.
Because it's so stylistic. And there are times in this movie where I thought, yeah, this is just kind of a vibe. This is a vibe thing that's going on right now. So that's my not so hot take, but this is more style over substance.
Definitely
This
noir.
movie might have lacked a narrative, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it right. And as, for example, The Highwayman 2019, which 100% had a very clear narrative and was a lot more. This was just kind of, which makes it more real life and more snobby.
It's
I
like a
suppose.
hangout.
Yeah, it's a hangout.
It's a hangout movie.
It's basically Dazed and Confused with guns. in the Depression with cool hair
Yeah.
and impotence.
Yeah.
Sorry, too soon. Sorry, guys. Jump the gun there. Mariah, what's your hot take for the old? Oh, I'm drinking a Jubal Ale, which I got on sale because it is a winter brew, and it's
not
no longer
winter.
winter. It's still delicious. I will be following that up by the Space Haze by Hop Valley. Thanks, guys. That's all.
Thanks.
Interesting pairing.
Yeah.
It's what was in the fridge. I am rocking the Apocalypse IPA Hop Burst.
I gotta say
It's a
that
fun new can.
is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm pretty.
It's real
happy with
pretty.
that. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Nice artwork.
Nice way to go. Way to go, guys.
And my hot take,
10 Barrel Brewing.
without having to tell you how I felt about the movie yet, is that it took me most of the movie to even decide whether or not I was liking it because I was so distracted by how pretty people were.
Oh, they were good looking.
Oh.
They are at the peak of their game.
I think it was.
Faye
I mean,
Dunaway and Warren Beatty.
yeah,
were at the
I mean,
peak
it
of their
was
game.
definitely like these are the really attractive people in Hollywood. It's not important whether or not the costumes are accurate or as dirty as they should be.
or as ugly as they should be.
Yeah. But yeah,
No, for sure. That's funny.
it was just distracting.
Distractingly pretty.
Yeah.
I get that a lot. Pat, you get that a lot, don't you, buddy? You and I get that a
Yeah,
lot.
sometimes I get lost in the mirror and somebody has to remind me there's a life outside of your own face. And I go,
Says you.
And then you say, I'll see
Yeah.
you later.
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey there. Good
High
looking.
five.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
okay.
like my alternate hot take was something along the lines of like, despite how good looking the leads were, they weren't super likable characters or something. I couldn't quite land that shit, but it's definitely like I felt drawn to say that these are attractive people as well. Just the opening shot, you're like Faye Dunaway's lips, and then you're like, oh, Faye Dunaway's naked.
That opening shot was very surprising. I did not know when I saw that opening shot, like, oh, this is real provocative, real quick. And then we got to talk about the era right now, because guys, listeners, gals, whatever, this is breakthrough craziness for American movies. Before
I have a
this,
great hot take.
Oh, go for it.
Suddenly,
This
is the Blue Velvet
ooh
of the 60s movies.
Oh,
I'll give you
I'd
that.
say it's equivalent
it's a hot
in the
that's
shock.
It's hot. No, the hot take is this movie is actually really hot. That's probably the hot take
Yeah.
for reals. Like, this movie is.
But I mean, how violent and dirty and
So here's where
the most
here's-
asexual, sexy movie.
yeah.
something
Hey,
along
they
those
have
lines?
sex
Yeah.
eventually.
Remember that one time?
Maybe.
Towards the end.
Yeah, they faded out.
Yeah.
They faded out.
It
So
was panned away and watched the newspapers fly off.
I may have done a little extra research this week, guys. Aside from reading a book. That's right, guys. Read a book. But that's not the extra research. I watched another movie. It was the movie that won Cans that year? Can that year. And then I also looked up what won, was it the British Award? They are
This year?
the year of 1968, same year as this one for this. Yeah, American movies were just behind. We were still Dr. Doolittling, because that's the other movie that got nominated that year was Dr. Dolittle, which is hilarious.
Hey, fun movie.
And it got nominated because that was the only movie that studio had that year that was worth.
Hey, Rex is solid.
The
in
other
everything.
two movies were so sexually provocative that makes this look almost tame, which is just to show you that Hollywood knew
It was tame in America, yeah.
Yeah, but this was crazy in America. But
Well, sorry, yes.
but because of just the influence of European, and we got to talk about it. This is where I finally understood why we did the French New Wave. These movies are a direct result of the French New Wave.
Mm-hmm.
folks, for those of you who don't know, we've been trying to be a movie snob for a while. And we honestly started this out. We didn't know why we needed to watch some of these movies. We didn't know why Godard was important or Truffaut. We didn't know why these directors were important until movies like this in Hollywood changed everything. This movie was originally supposed to be Truffaut, and then Truffaut's like, hey, go meet my buddy Godard, and he was supposed to be the original director. And that was the original intent, for this to be a French New Wave American film. Everything about this was Americans copying the French. Ironic enough, who the French were copying the Americans, but that's, we talk about that in our
and the
French New Wave.
Cinematographer got the memo, I think.
Oh, but the cinematographer, straight off of the screenwriters and Warren Beatty, they said, no, do it this way. You're going to win an Oscar for it. Like, they told him from the beginning. Because this is he's the most old Hollywood cinematographer you can get. Like, he's OG, but they 100% were hoping that this was going to be directed by like either Truffaut or Godard, and they were thinking this was going to be a French New Wave in America movie.
Hence the beret, huh?
Well, and until Beatty got the rights and was like, yes, I know you wrote it as French New Wave, but an American should direct it.
Kind of.
And that's what pivoted back over.
That's
my understanding.
So,
well, and there was also the struggle just to get it made in the first place. So I don't think he got his first pick of anything.
No, everyone passed on it.
Including the leading lady.
But Godard said yes. He said yes. But the problem was he had another movie he needed to get out of contractually. So he wanted to shoot this all in New York. And then the writers are like, no, I don't want to shoot it all in New York. When really Godard just wanted, it never is what you say it is, because originally they were never going to shoot it on location. So then Godard had to pass because he had another commitment. So it really was going to be. Then Warren Beatty would have signed up if Godard was directing, because that's like one of his heroes as well. Because these guys, this is what I didn't understand. I never knew this. If you were cool in Hollywood in the late 60s, you didn't watch Hollywood films. You watched French films. That was like the cool thing to do. Like, it was, I
think that's still true. French or Japanese now, right?
Those Japanese, for sure.
If anyone's in the Criterion closet, they are constantly talking about anything, basically, but
Cleo from 5 to 7.
Exactly right. Well, and the other one we haven't watched on the show yet, but the Italian one. Oh shoot, I forgot what that one was too. But not 8mm. Anyways, but
eight. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Well,
8.5.
8.5 or so. I think it's 8.5. So there's like these standard films, including the one we watched, the Godard film we watched. What was that one called? I can't remember that.
8.5.
Breathless, including Breathless. So these are like the standard movies that like changed everything. And even honestly, when I was watching it, there was some moments where I'm like, oh, it's kind of like the main guy in Breathless, who's just kind of going from one illegal thing to the other, steals a car and kind of moves around. Mm-hmm. So it definitely had some feel of this, like these French New Wave movies. But
charming thief.
Yeah, charming. He's bad, but he's kind of charming.
Pretty blonde in a beret.
Yeah, honestly.
With really big eyelashes.
So this is what I feel like I've been like vindicated. We watch these movies for a reason, because we see the way Hollywood is moving. Because Hollywood is essentially it's all connected, folks. Yeah. Our movie snobness is coming together.
Well, yeah, and us being so naive growing up, thinking like American films are the best films, and we're the ones that came up with the ideas first, and that's almost never the case.
Right,
it's never our idea,
or it's never the big studios,
and we were never first. Yeah.
We are. I will say this about America.
I mean, we were first technologically in a lot of ways.
Technically, yes, but they were usually immigrants in America doing it. So I will say Americans did it first, but I will say the people who were always pushing the envelope or moving forward were from another country in America.
Yeah, so we imported a lot.
Yeah, I feel like they were barely here though, and I feel like that's not us coming up with a great idea. That's just. Well, hey, we have a great location.
No, I hate to say it.
America, you're running from that guy. You should come here and make this movie.
Yeah, it's true. Well, that was a particular era for sure. And even the French films copied old school Hollywood. But then because Hollywood became this machine that no one believed anymore by late 60s. Because this is the fun thing too. It's all this 60s hippie movement, Haight-Ashbury, Vietnam War. Martin Luther King Jr. got shot.
Yeah, lots of
2
assassinations.
days before the Oscars. Like, it's just all of this stuff is going on.
Yeah.
And they're no longer, it's like there's no trust in the Hollywood anymore. And honestly, that's kind of what happened again in the 90s. And maybe what will happen soon now. I don't know. It could be the next revolution of film coming up. We don't know. But there seems to be these eras where they no longer trust them because there's the Hays Code, and the Hays Code turned into like the Catholic Council and turned into like had to be okayed by it. But you know what studios started doing? They started importing films from England and France, and they didn't care if it got okayed by the Motion Picture Alliance. So they just put them out under different names, and it was fine. And then American films realized we're not going to keep up. So this movie is the death of the former council for keeping things like not Hays Code, but whatever was after the Hays Code. This is the death of it.
The rating
this
guys.
movie, the rating guys, before they got the rating system which they have now. So this is kind of a huge landmark because they never would have shown this much blood or this much sexual innuendo in a movie ever until now. So this movie really is kind of it's so popular but so snobby at the same time. I feel like it's a good middle ground for us to really jump into.
Well, what's interesting is that it's still a studio movie, right? It's a Warner Brothers movie, but it's starting to deviate because I was just trying to look up, like, when did The Easy Rider come out? So that came out 2 years later.
Yep.
And that's like when we kicked off this big indie push,
yes,
right, of the time.
But Warner
but
Brothers
this was not an
barely,
indie movie, right? This was...
I mean, this was
they weren't happy with it.
They didn't like it. They didn't believe in it.
But they still put a lot of, like, it was still part of their movie production process.
You ready for this, though? It wasn't, though. They literally tried to kill it because Warner hated it so much. He only released it in New York and a couple of stadiums.
Drive-in theaters and, like...
Yeah, and it wasn't until they got Oscars that they re-released it, and it made like 10 times what it made before that. So The Graduate was the number one. So this is the fun part. The Graduate and Bonnie and Clyde were like one of the lowest budgets movies of the year, and they outperformed everybody else. The Graduate was the number one movie by far that year, and Dr. Dolittle got destroyed. I'm not blaming Rex Erikson, but he wasn't helping. He wasn't helping.
Beatty, we're on fun facts yet, but
no.
Pretty fun fact for Warren Beatty: 40% cut.
Yes,
as producer, and the director got a 10% cut. So
box office
did well.
$70 million back then. Beatty was rich before he knew it. It's like he went.
Well,
from
I'm pretty sure he was rich going into it, being a producer on the movie too.
Not really, though.
It was his first production.
And he only barely knew how to do
20,
that. Yeah,
25.
He's
or
a
something.
kid in this thing.
Yeah, I think they came from money, is what I'm saying.
Oh, well, Warren's family, but he hadn't made it.
His
really
sister
as an
at least did.
Yeah, he hadn't made it as an actor yet, really. But because this was his big his first movie he was ever in was starring with Natalie Wood. Did you guys see that movie? It's just her thirsting after him. The whole movie. And so he became like an instant heartthrob. But then he was super careful not to pick his movies, and then he became known as a prima donna, and no one wanted to work with him. So this kind of saved his career, to be honest. So anyways, this movie, it's crazy. I just can't believe how French feeling it is. Maybe that should have been my the hot take. Caliente. No, that's Spanish.
The Frenchest American.
Should we talk about what actually happened? Or I guess since we all watched it first, what was your
initial reactions?
What were your first impressions? Yeah. Mariah.
Yeah.
It took me a while to like it. Like, I found Warren Beatty to not be a great actor, seemingly, in this movie. He's very attractive. I felt like Faye Dunaway did a pretty good job. I feel like the supporting actors were pretty good.
Gene Hackman,
Yeah.
Willy Wonka.
I mean it. I mean it was okay.
You know what's the problem with
I mean it was not. It doesn't. I don't understand why it's still in like the top 50.
Oh wow, them's fighting words. Okay, okay.
And I love historical fictions, which is kind of. I mean,
this totally is.
Kind of is.
You know what's
I love period movies.
This is barely period.
These are gorgeous people. Well, it's in a period.
It's 100%. I guess it's a period piece, but they're just so modern.
I get this. I think my interpretation of it though was like that they were portraying pretty unlikable people as kind of unlikable. Just they happened to be really good looking, and I thought like that was hard for me to be like, what do I even think about this movie or these humans that existed?
Yeah, I think
it did feel at odds in a lot of ways. Where I'm like, I don't like what's happening.
No, and I think
even though I like looking at them.
Yeah, that's the thing is like you're so distracted by their beauty half the time. But I feel like the redeeming qualities of the movie for me was the fact that it was breaking barriers. It was doing new things. There was interesting ways they were filming it. Like the first time it, gun to victim in one shot. And like there's interesting things about it that I like appreciated. I thought it was.
That's right. Squibs.
I thought that was cool. By the end, I was enjoying it more, but I was unhappy with the acting, especially in the beginning. Their whole beginning of their relationship was weird. Like, let's rob a bank, all in one day.
But that all is weird. Like that, I think that's the thing where these people are like sickos, and I shouldn't like them.
No.
And I kind of don't. I think that was what I was fighting with. I was like, should I like them? Because I know this spawned this giant fashion revolution, and
sure, I get the fashion
and
piece.
Immortalized Bonnie and Clyde as what we think of as these really good looking, young, rebels or whatever. But it's like, you're kind of terrible people doing terrible things in really hard times.
And I think
the only redeeming quality is you were sticking it to the banks.
Yeah.
Who kind of screwed everyone over ish.
Yeah, I think.
But you weren't really. I don't know.
Yeah. I think
the weird thing.
I think the one thing I found, and I don't know if it was because I think Faye Dunaway did a great job acting in it, but I found myself just as annoyed with everyone else as she was in the movie. So maybe it was just
Buck and his wife.
I was like, man, I am totally annoyed with them too. This is National Lampoon.
That's so funny.
This is Cousin Eddie.
Yes.
That's
Gene
great.
Hackman was a lot, and his wife was a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, here's
maybe I was just sympathizing with her situation. These guys are sharing a house with us. Oh my gosh. And a car.
I have to go the other way. So I was distracted by all the people I knew from other things. I had a hard time thinking, really? Willy Wonka's in this? All the things I've seen him in. And he was
Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder was so Gene Wilder, but the irony was,
youngish.
Oh my gosh! But he still felt like Gene Wilder in everything he's ever been in.
Yeah.
So I was just so distracted. I felt like it didn't fit the
whole
story.
Telling the joke.
Oh, it's hilarious. And same thing with Gene Hackman. Felt like Gene Hackman. I'm like, oh, what's he doing here? So I don't know Warren Beatty's work or Annette or Faye Dunaway's work as well as Gene Hackman and Wilder. Mm-hmm. So I was fine with the Faye Dunaway, Warren Beatty romancing each other. Fine. That was fine with me. I was like, it felt little Rebel without a cause sort of thing, except actual killing. So for me, I was
less teen angst, more murder.
It was teen angst. It was 100% teen angst with murder involved, and I thought that was great. I thought that not great, but you know what I mean. It was a fresh angle.
Whoa, Seth.
Yeah, whoa, Seth. Come on, buddy. But they died the real people die when they're 24 and 23.
Yeah.
So they weren't far away from that. So they definitely were these, and they played her off as kind of a hussy, like who slept with all the truckers who came by, and he was like, super insecure about stuff. So I bought that hook, line, and sinker. I was in.
Yeah.
But then when Gene Hackman with his crazy wife came in, they joined along. I was like, that's not realistic. But that did really happen. That's the crazy part about that.
And even picking up CW, you're like, what is this?
All of it's partly true.
The part I did,
yes,
I did. The fact that it's the Great Depression and no one had hope is the part that I think I let myself get carried away by the movie. I'm like, imagine worse than the 2007 crash, worse than the 1999 or 97 internet burst or whatever it was. This is everybody's out of work and starving. There's no hope. Robbing a bank didn't seem like a crazy thing.
Well, and the banks didn't really have that much anyway on them. So, like, no matter even if you're doing that, you don't make that much off of it.
I did love the robbing the bank that had already gone out of business.
Yes.
Got like $2 or whatever.
Yeah.
That was such a great moment. But I actually felt like they did a pretty bad job of setting the stage for the Depression. Because when the movie starts, naked Faye Dunaway, Warren Beatty's fooling around with the car, and they immediately start doing crime, and there's not like we are driven to any of this by the circumstances we're in.
There's
it was
no,
just like these people just get a thrill from doing this.
Yeah, there's no
and
moment
they're kind of
where
good at it.
Yeah, she's bored. He's already started doing this.
Yeah, and so it wasn't like...
Might be true, though. That was probably what actually happened.
No, yeah.
So, that's not
he
far off.
Somehow trained on a bunch of weapons, apparently. Like, he was really good at marksman with all kinds of weapons. But it was just one of those, like, in the context of the movie, I kind of forgot we were in the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
Because outside of that one family that they come across who'd been, kicked out by the bank.
And the homeless camp that they come up later that saved their lives.
Yeah, right. But even that, it's sort of like...
They just look like they chose to live that way because they're like, here's some food to go. And
that's interesting.
No, they felt
it was
the people's thing.
But they didn't seem
people were having a simpler life.
They didn't seem to be really struggling other than being unhoused.
Oh, I disagree.
Well,
completely.
I think in other movies where you show the Depression, there's like work lines and
also
the soup kitchen-y bits and all that, and it's like they didn't do any of that stuff. They felt like businesses were running. They're stealing money.
As soon as they show up to that hideout,
guys need it spelled out.
Gene Hackman's on the phone with the grocer, like, I want 12 pounds of meat and blah blah blah, and like this incredible grocery order, and they go pick it up. It's
there's the Gene Wilder world.
Like, apparently there was DoorDash was right there too. It was the first DoorDash.
Oh, Gene Wilder. Yes,
The Undertaker, baby.
He had a car.
The Undertaker.
That's the other thing. Well. Everybody had a car.
That was the crazy part.
For the Great Depression, there were so many cars.
A lot of sweet cars.
So many cars.
Man, you could steal cars so easily back then.
And
that was the other thing that struck me. All crime's easy.
Yeah.
Honestly, though.
You just do it, and it's Keystone Cop. Even though that was the other thing, like, they're so lighthearted with, like, being actively shot at, and everyone's laughing, and it's like, what is this? Who are these people? And that's where I kept being, like, put off by them as humans. Even though I was caught up in all the shenanigans of it, it was like, good Lord, like, I don't know why any of you are doing this. It was crazy.
Yeah, no,
I did love the anecdote, both the anecdotes about them being in prison and Clyde cutting off some toes was basically true.
Yeah, that was true.
And then also Buck turning himself back in to prison after escaping was true.
Yep.
And apparently the warden was like so impressed that he didn't give him any additional time. And it was just like, and it's like the only time in the history of Texas that's ever happened or something.
Wow.
And it's like just this little aside, and they're just laughing at each other about these like horrifying life things.
Like,
it's
we
such a
don't
weird family.
We don't make the most logical choices here.
No. I did. I think the thing that did feel edgy right away, and the thing that I was like, oh, I don't know if I like these characters, but this movie's really interesting, was that very early, Faye Dunaway's all juiced up. Oh, gross. She's cut that. She's all excited from. She's
Big
all
edit.
Excited. Cut that. Wrong euphemism. She was all excited after the robbery.
Yeah.
And she's trying to make out with him, and he's like, I'm not a lover boy.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, like this is interesting because they've literally established the most sexual thing happening in the first minute of the movie.
Yeah.
Faye Dunaway's there naked, looking at Warren Beatty, and you're like, this is going to be like a sexual movie.
Yeah.
Cut to basically, no, that's not going to happen at all, but we're still going to love each other because we're addicted to thrills and whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
And you're like, what a crazy premise they've immediately done. And that kind of carried a lot of it through.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty clever, actually, because you still have that tension then. Because
that's really the only emotion that you see in them, or connection, I guess. It's like the whole scene where things didn't go the way she'd hoped, and she finally just like looks up at him and is like, okay, like this is disappointing, but we're moving on. Like,
yeah, but it was a really interesting hook on their relationship. That
the
it
not
wasn't
having sex was
that.
A connection for them, I think, too.
Yeah. Other fun fact I'm going to throw in here.
All right, fun facts.
Apparently, Warren Beatty would sleep with his co-stars all the time.
For sure.
Yes.
But for this movie, they decided not to.
Yeah.
Because it was truer to the characters or something. I thought that was kind of hilarious.
Yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with that. I think it's because it was Faye Dunaway.
Yeah, I think it's because he didn't want her in that role in the first place.
Because he talked about it. He's like, no, it's Faye. I respect her as an actress. And we're like, bah, yeah, right. Whatever, Warren Beatty. Yeah. We don't believe you at all.
What did he call her? Done fade away or something?
No, that wasn't him. It was
somebody else.
Who was it? It was the other. It was one of the other, like, it was like Paul Newman or someone. It was some other, like, major. Yeah.
Jack Nicholson?
No,
it sounds like a Jack.
Right?
That would be a Jack thing.
He had a name for her too, but she liked that one.
Yeah. Done fade away. That's so funny. But then I'm telling you, the editor made her look so good because apparently, like, he chopped up several parts in a row. So, like, when you think it's Faye doing. By the way, Faye didn't win the best supporting actress. She lost the best actress.
She was the lead actress.
She was the lead actress.
Yeah. No, it was the supporting actress.
It was
won.
the annoying wife.
Yeah.
Who won best supporting actress for that.
Yeah. No, they got tons of nominations, but yeah, nobody. Only Estelle Parsons won.
Which is pretty crazy. And then she got nominated a couple of years later. But yeah. So another thing about this is the story wasn't really that big of a deal until this movie. This movie then made it a kind of
Bonnie and Clyde.
Of Bonnie and Clyde.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then historically, we didn't really, I mean, I'm sure people at the time, because they were kind of, according to they don't go over this in this movie, but they do go over it in the 2019 movie Highwaymen with Woody Harrelson and Kevin Costner.
Who are on, it's from the opposite point of view.
Yes, which is great that they have that because that's more historically accurate to what happened. Because apparently they did start out and have kind of, I do like in this movie, because they do try and make them the Robin Hood. Like, we won't only rob from the banks. We're not going to rob from the people. They're all right. But then in Highwaymen, they talk about this when they start killing innocent people that are not police officers. That's when the public turned on them. Because when they got killed, the public had already turned on them because they had killed too many innocent people.
Which apparently, when they go to, like, kidnap Gene Wilder, it's like, let's get him or whatever. Apparently that was, like, the phrasing they would use. And in one of those situations, apparently Clyde's like, let's get him. And whoever one of the amalgams of who CW became in the movie,
Yeah.
thought that meant like let's kill him, and so he ended up killing some innocent people, and that was one of those like
Yes.
and Clyde's like, oh shoot, like I guess I gotta also kill them. So
Right.
it kind of was this accidental misunderstanding of what he meant.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like not to excuse anything these people
No.
have done.
And it's
But
hard
apparently
to, yeah.
he was not like, I think one of those murders that really did turn public opinion against him was this accident, more or less.
Yeah, he had not planned it. He had not wanted it that way.
No, he didn't want to kill them.
For sure. But then you just get carried away of one thing happens and then you move on. Yeah, I do like what this is the first time Hollywood has allowed like the anti-hero. We relate to the bad guys. And this is the first time like we've really been since the 30s. Since pre-Hays Code Hollywood. Because they say you're not allowed to glorify crime or what all these rules they had, and this went against so many. And there's just
killing cops,
obvious
banks.
sexual stuff. Bonnie almost going down, but then there's a lot of things that you never would have been able to get away with a year before.
I was shocked.
A
by
year
that
before.
scene.
Yeah, that scene is
I was
crazy
like,
because
whoa,
the
what's
insinuation
happening?
is you never would have seen that a year before. No, that's 5 years before.
No, it would have faded to black when they were making out.
Oh, for sure.
Well,
And then
when
they would
actually,
cut to them waking up the next day.
I mean, when they actually, had sex in the movie, it does do the like, we're gonna just fly away, and that's what kind of made. I mean, that scene like
Surprising.
they showed more with less happening.
Yes,
in a way, where
exactly right.
That's where I was
Because
like,
they're
kind
showing,
of
I think, because they're
shocked.
trying to show the disappointment and the frustration and like
Yeah.
the fact that not only are these two together, but they're not even that compatible.
That's pretty funny though. That when they're
Is it
done,
just the
he's like,
implication?
"Was I all right?
Yeah.
Oh, you were great. I was pretty good, wasn't I?" I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
I was dying because he doesn't know, and she's slept with 1 million people, so she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, you were great, babe."
Yeah.
yeah.
That was heaven.
It was heaven. Oh, it's so good. I'm like, that's the most funny, relatable thing. So that was, very things you could not surprisingly got away with. And frankly, it's because it was between that transition where the studios knew they didn't have any power to say no anymore. They knew they were losing to Europe. And so Bonnie and Clyde kind of got carte blanche to do whatever. They didn't show like, full.
Well, and they
full
were
movie.
trying to torpedo it more or less.
Well, yeah,
too.
the studio
Anyway,
was
Sure.
pretty.
So,
I can imagine the studio was really hands off the fact that they didn't believe in it at all through the whole process, and the lead actors producing. I feel like, they probably did a lot of stuff before people started actually seeing the final cuts that
yeah.
probably
Well, and then like you
surprised a
mentioned
lot of people.
before. Yeah, like you mentioned before, the amount of like more visceral violence, actual someone shooting and a squib popping and blood and stuff was not a thing that had been happening at the time.
Well, especially
It was all
their
bloodless
death
shots
at the
and things.
end.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Spoiler
That-
alert, they die, you guys.
Oh, shoot, guys.
That is pretty. It holds up in a lot of ways.
Oh, man.
In this like
That
over the top crazy thing. And then speaking, I watched The Highwaymen today because I was like, how did they show?
Oh, good, you did.
And it's like
similar.
it's also. I mean, I'd seen the movie before, but I rewatched the death
Yeah.
scene, and I was like, oh my! Like in some ways, like that's crazier. Oh, they showed it. They shot them so many times.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Four.
nuts.
And that's true,
Four,
right?
yeah.
That really happened that way,
Yeah.
right? That's the
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah,
part about
riddled.
it.
That
I mean,
was the film
Highwaymen was
snobby
more accurate.
piece.
They were still in the car and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But like, it was, and even after they'd been riddled with bullets, they went over and shot them more.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, good lord,
yeah.
Man.
it's crazy.
Yeah. And how they
It's a
shot
violent
it.
thing.
I thought it was. I mean, that was it. Kind of got the movie snob in me. Like, oh, they used 4 different cameras and they were all different speeds. Like
that's
this
cool.
was like, because you know the whole like Warren
it's
like
cutting between
going
fast
through
and slow motion.
and they did it in 2 takes.
Well, that's it.
I think
That's really good.
it only took 2.
Well,
which
I mean, they had to
that's
use
a lot of
squibs,
that's
so.
a lot of clothes that you have to replace. A lot of
Man.
new cars that you're gonna shoot up.
When they had to like tie Faye Dunaway's leg to the inside of the car so she wouldn't fall all the way out. There's a lot of weird.
Oh, that'd be
weird
painful.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then even the cutting there, that one I think is the most stark to me. Like there are so many cuts to everyone's perspective, and we get the Monty Python like the car is still coming, more or less the same shot. And like cut to a bush, and you're like, why are we looking at this bush? And the birds go. There's a ton of like great things that other movies have 100% stolen from that moment.
Yep.
Where it's like we switch from like, oh, look, all those birds flew away, and then oh my god, we're realizing we're about to die.
Why
And
is
Right?
it? Why
Looking
is
at each
he
other.
jumping under this truck and hiding? That's weird.
It's so good.
Oh, that's so crazy. It became by the end of '68, it was the studio's second highest grossing film of all time,
Yeah.
behind My Fair Lady. Which
Considering what
and
a slow
67
release it was.
because they didn't release it to anywhere. They
No.
only let like New York and a couple like random theater, and then they re-released it in '68, and it becomes their number 2 moneymaker of all time. Warren Beatty just cashing checks,
Man,
just making
Jack,
money.
I bet Jack Warner felt very silly.
Well, he was done by then. At that point, he no longer had control of the studio. Not only was he done, he was done. He was not, because that was like the last time he had control. And then he sold his
And he
rights,
did a bad job.
And he no longer, it was the end of old Hollywood in so many ways.
And then he went.
Another fun fact I'm going to sprinkle in because related. Apparently, because Warren Beatty and Jack Warner were arguing about the movie, and he wanted it shot like a 1930s gangster movie, and Warren Beatty's like, no. He's like, whose name's on the
Exactly.
logo?
Oh, yeah.
Warren Beatty's like,
WB.
whose initials are on the logo?
Yeah, I did like that.
He's like, it does say WB.
Good petty nonsense.
And apparently,
The thing that struck me... Oh, go on.
well, I was going to say, the amazing thing about Warren Beatty, apparently he's like the most persuasive man in Hollywood. He would just...
Well,
he
with
would
the
literally-
ladies,
I mean,
he
look
sure
at his
was.
face.
Well,
Yeah.
he would...
Just
but
look
like,
at his face.
he would literally like
got a
get
song
on his
after.
hands and knees and say, "I'm not getting up until you let me do this." He would do that all the time.
So he was like
just
that
beg-
really
persuasive,
annoying
so as
guy.
much as coercive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He was. That's
It's not that he was that charming, but
It's the only way he got the director. That's
he
the
was,
only
like,
way he
laying
got
on
the
the
director
floor.
to do it, because no one else wanted to do it, and he literally just begged Arthur Penn, like, "I need you. This can't be done without you." It's just so funny, and that's like how he does it over and over again. He didn't do it to Faye Dunaway because he wasn't like super sold on her, but other than that,
No,
everyone
they
else-
basically told him she's in it.
Yeah.
The director, I think it
For
was,
sure.
said she's in this.
Yeah,
Too
I mean, I
bad.
think she does
I think she's great in this movie.
a great job.
I do too. Mariah and I just watched that documentary. She's rough.
Yeah.
So someone said, "Who's the worst person you ever worked with?" And who was it? Was it Bette Miller? I forget what.
Betty Davis.
Betty Davis. She's like, $1 million, Faye Dunaway.
Yeah.
I'd never work with her again.
Yeah. And everybody who
But she's
did
been a lot
and
of,
even
like-
said nice things, it was like, she's hard.
She's
And,
rough
like
to work with.
like even her kid
And
is
even in the interview, as they're interviewing her about being a great actress, she was so awful
and nitpicky
to
and
the person interviewing her. Like,
Yeah, she was-
oh, it's nuts.
she's definitely a handful.
Yeah.
But
She's,
she
I
looked
think
good.
she's one of those
She looked
actresses.
real good in this movie, guys.
Yeah. And, well, like, I think I've seen her a lot of times, but she's not like an actress that had for some reason is stuck in my head. Like, I've seen Chinatown several times. I've seen
Yes, I forget
3
it's
Days of the
Faye Dunaway in
Condor.
there too, by the way.
And it's like,
I haven't seen
oh,
Network,
yeah,
but
that's
after
her.
seeing the HBO special, I really want to see Network now.
Oh, yeah, I've seen Network. She was in the remake of the Thomas Crown Affair.
Yes.
Yep,
You know,
yep.
McQueen.
I've seen all these things.
Oh,
Yeah.
we
and
got
it's
to,
like,
we got to talk about who was supposed to replace her, though. Who the original
oh
people
yeah,
were
well, there's
cast.
a lot of fun casting stuff.
Well,
in this
before
movie.
before Warren Beatty, he wanted Shirley MacLaine
Yep.
to play Bonnie. And
By the
then
way,
once he
folks,
decided to take the role, I was like, well, we can't
Shirley-
do that anymore.
Shirley MacLaine is Warren Beatty's sister, for all you folks in the audience who didn't know that, because they don't
Yeah.
have the last name, and it
It's
took me a
crazy.
second. It did take me a couple seconds
It's
to figure
crazy
that
that
out.
that's true.
Also, Natalie Wood was really in contention to play this, which would have been the second movie Warren Beatty and Natalie Wood would have been in together.
And it was a sad film.
And did you see why she didn't want to do it?
Because he's been difficult. Warren Beatty has been difficult.
She didn't want to be separated from her psychoanalyst, who she met with daily.
Well,
And then I think she
Probably
killed
for-
herself like right after this.
No, she attempted to. She didn't ever kill her.
No,
Okay.
Natalie Wood lived.
She drowned. She fell off a boat.
She fell.
Oh.
She
Oh, right.
drowned.
She
It
was
was an
with-
accident.
No,
by
but
her.
With,
that was
Yeah,
Wagner
what's his face?
yeah.
and Walken.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, she tried to kill herself. So I kind of thought
That day,
I don't know if the
I guess
psychoanalyst is
Seriously,
doing
I
a
didn't
good
know
job.
that.
Yeah, it's his ex, and he called and he really wanted her to do it, and he said that was the last time I talked to her ever. Was when I tried and talked her into being in the movie, and it didn't.
Okay, I do
She
have to
said
say
no,
this,
and then
though.
she tried to kill herself that night.
No, that's crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. The crazy part. Okay, Natalie Wood. Sorry, but she's dated half of Hollywood. She dated Hopper. She dated There's so many people that Natalie Wood dated at that point.
Not great guys,
No,
I would argue.
that's
None
true.
of them were probably easy
No.
partners.
No, the stories from 1955's Rebel Without a Cause are not good stories. Let's just put it that way. Between her sleeping with Dennis Hopper, the director, back and forth, and she's like, what, 15 at the time or something? It's not good. It's not good. So, yeah. So that's one of them.
Poor Natalie Wood.
Yeah. The other ones, there's a laundry list of it from Jane Fonda, Tuesday Weld, Anne Margaret, Sharon Tate, Leslie Caron, Carol Lenley, and Sue Lyon. And Cher apparently even auditioned.
Oh,
That's a fun one too. So it's
I heard that. And then the Sonny Bono, who was her manager at the time, right, was like, how dare you let her audition for this movie? Like, yelled at Warren Beatty about it. Because it's so, she couldn't be in this movie.
because it would ruin her
She's
image. What's so
I'm
funny?
going to save her for Mask.
It's so great.
I actually think she probably would have done just good in it.
Oh yeah. And the number of people Warren Beatty trying to get to direct this: George Stevens, William Wyler, Carl Renz, John Schlesinger, Brian G. Hutton, Sidney Pollock. It's anyone, Godard, Tufo, anyone?
Yeah.
Can I get a direct? It's.
Well, think about it. It's I don't know that the writers had done a bunch before this, actually.
Oh, they try to sell it forever.
And
forever. They try
when
to
you've
sell
got a
this.
first-time producer,
forever. Yes.
what you're gonna be like? Sure, Warren Beatty, I'm gonna do this.
Yes. Exactly right.
Jack Nicholson apparently was in the running for CW,
Oh, that would have been fun.
and thought people would have been maybe a little too similar to Warren Beatty.
Oh, we got
vibe-wise.
this. We got to talk about the original script, guys.
Oh,
Do you know about this? Tell me.
You
about
do,
this.
I guess.
So the driver.
I think I know about this.
The driver was not supposed to be the way the driver was. The driver was supposed to be a large, muscular man who they have a 3-person rendezvous with together. That was
Wait,
supposed
what driver?
You mean the third guy, CW.
CW.
Oh.
In the movie.
CW. Instead of being like a scrawny guy, he was
Instead of
supposed to
being
be
like
this,
a mechanic.
He's supposed
they
to be
picked
a
up
big, muscular
gas station
mechanic.
attendant.
Who's
I didn't know
like
the muscular stuff. I did know they wanted to make Clyde bisexual.
Because Clyde was supposed to be bisexual, and that was like a main point that Warren Beatty's like, we're not changing this. We're not going to change. This is like paramount to the picture.
And so then they just chose impotent.
Yes, and that was like the thing they changed instead. But that was a 1967.
Still, impotent's pretty. Ew.
Right, but compared to like bisexual in 1967, that would have been crazy. That would have been like, that would have blown. It wouldn't have got made. I don't think.
That would have made a lot of
I
Hollywood
think-
actors uncomfortable.
I think that was part of the justification. Was like, look, we already got a lot going on in this. Maybe not do that. And there's some thought that like maybe Warren Beatty wasn't super comfortable portraying
In the
it
end,
that way
He
yeah.
too.
said he was,
Yeah.
but you're probably right. He probably in the
He
end
did have
the
a hand
rumor
in some
was-
of the rewrites.
Yeah, the rumor was he actually wasn't comfortable with that. That's for sure.
Yeah. Which apparently was a rumor about Clyde Barrow
Oh, for sure. Rumor is that he
that-
really was bisexual.
Well, but I think that's because, I didn't do a ton of research on this, but he was abused pretty heavily in prison.
Yeah,
Yes,
he was
he
the
was
apparently
actually
killed
in
his
prison.
the victim.
killed his abuser.
Yep.
And so I think rumors after he had died kind of came out about it, but there's not necessarily
not concrete
evidence of any of it. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. that makes
But
sense.
again, this movie is not factual. I think that's the other
No,
interesting
that's
thing. Like
right.
the parallel parking story was like a John Dillinger incident. They kind of just pulled all these old gangstery stories. They were
Yeah.
like, let's put that in the movie.
Yeah,
Let's
the
put that in
brother, the
movie.
brother jumping over the teller window thing. That was a Dillinger thing. There was
Yeah.
like different. They borrowed from
kidnapping-
some stuff.
The kidnapping a
Undertaker,
mortician
yes.
and a lady did actually happen.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And apparently, once they realized what he did for a job, they kicked him out.
So she really was that whole thing scared of like death, which is crazy.
Yeah,
That's-
but she did write that poem. I think that's the other interesting thing, like which wasn't published in the paper when they were alive, but
No,
her
they
mother
found
released it.
Yeah.
So
But like, kind of a crazy, like she knew this was not a long-term thing.
for sure.
Doing her little rhymes about them dying.
It's not. Warren Beatty said without the poems, they never would have made the movie. He's like, we just wouldn't have the story. It would have just been something else. But because of those poems, arguably they really did live in infamy because of the poems she wrote. And they're
Yeah.
just, and they're not
pretty
like
crazy.
they're not like well written or anything, but they're just it's still amazing
No.
for this.
Honestly, but they're not bad.
No, they're not bad for
like
sure.
the other one, I thought like, oh, okay. Like I think to me more the perspective she had about what she was rhyming was better than the rhymes on their own. Right? You're like, wow, you're sort of seeing this from both sides. You're both playing up your legacy and realizing like you're meant to die young.
Yeah. Well, and
It's
he
kind of like haunting, horrible thing.
and he even says like, you just described my whole life. Like you
Yeah, that was
captured
great.
it
That was a good
perfectly,
line.
kind of like you know me.
Yeah. Yeah, so did you think by that point in the movie, Mariah, were you like, this is bad acting? Or were you like, what a little funny little yokel,
I liked it it was very much more, it was enjoyable, the second half. I think once, I'm not even really sure what the turning point was for me. I think just the whole,
once they got rid of Buck.
no, Buck and,
Which is pretty late.
they were still there too. I think it was just once they were on the run. I think that it took them meeting and then getting through the first robbery or two. Maybe it was after the bank that was already shut down, and it was so funny. And I think once people started dying, I was getting into it, or the
Typical.
the shootouts. Once it got dark, how I like to sign up for those kinds of things. But yeah, I just did, and I don't remember seeing these two actors that young. Obviously not that young, but even beyond that, not very far. And remembering, who they were. And it did help actually watching the Faye Dunaway thing later and seeing like how versatile an actress she actually was. Like every part she played, she was really a different person.
Unlike
So
you,
there,
Warren Beatty.
she redeemed her. I saw
Unlike
it
you,
was maybe
Warren Beatty.
redeemed after the fact for me.
He's
Warren
just so
Beatty, I
handsome
feel
all the
like,
time.
gosh, she's just so handsome.
Honestly, what's the difference between Dick Tracy in this movie? He's on the other side of the car. That's the only difference.
A little brighter,
Yeah,
He looks like a comic
the
book.
colors.
weirder looking other people. Although
Nobody
Michael
else has
Pollard
enough-
is a weird looking guy.
Yeah,
he is.
nobody else had enough prosthetics, I guess, in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this. I mean, I like the whole Bonnie and Clyde
Concept.
story. Yeah,
You-
the
you like-
concept,
you
not
like
the reality
idea
of it,
killing
but
people
the
for fun.
concept.
Yeah.
But did they kind of did it better 2 years later with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Absolutely.
But there would
Absolutely. That's one of my top 10, right?
There would be no Butch
I
Cassidy.
love that movie.
There would be no Butch Cassidy without this movie.
Because they
got
genuinely
a
had a
very
good reason
similar-
to do what they were doing, I feel.
Butch Cassidy is just a 2-bit ripoff
And
of
they had
Bonnie and Clyde.
2 really good-looking guys.
Instead
and-
of psycho
Well, but like it is
pretty girl.
Yeah. I think Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid it's basically following
Yeah, it's the same
the
thing.
story of Bonnie and Clyde,
Yep.
except I think there's more charm with our leads.
Oh, for sure.
And-
Sorry, Faye Dunaway, but anyone's got more charm than her.
Sure.
Well, but like
Paul Newman
I mean,
is just...
Oh, Paul Newman.
Come on.
just Paul Newman and Robert Redford are just so.
Yeah, that's not fair.
And Robert Redford's trying not to be charming in that movie, really, but it's like it's Robert Redford.
Still
I still
charming.
like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's
then
like-
Paul Newman just carries everybody for anything. But like it is
Yeah.
the same kind of meandering.
Also, the soundtrack
They're-
made a difference,
They're
too,
pulling.
probably.
Okay, here's
That,
a
honestly, in the rewatching of it, I'm
serious
like,
question, guys. Who's
it
better?
goes off the rails when they get to the bike scene.
It does.
I love
That's
the
such a
bike.
great scene.
Raindrops
That's a
keep
great-
falling on my head, and you're
it's
like,
like
what
the
movie is
bowling
this?
scene.
But the
in There Will Be Blood.
cinematography
It
of
just-
that, Pat,
it's
you know, they're
ridiculous.
getting him on when he's
Okay.
passing all the windows.
Equally weird.
Serious question, guys.
When Burt Bacharach comes out in Austin Powers, it's the same
It's just
level of
peak-
weird deviation.
it's just peak
Austin
movie
Powers
making.
is
It's
brilliant
peak
for
movie
so many
making.
reasons. Who's
Yeah.
hotter?
All right,
Who's
sorry,
hotter? Robert Redford and
Paul Newman.
Paul Newman
Paul Newman.
or Brad Pitt and George Clooney? This is the fight, guys. This is the fight.
Newman Redford.
What? I'm going Pitt, baby.
Redford equals Pitt. So
No.
it's really
Yeah.
Newman against
No,
Clooney,
Pitt-
and Newman
Pitt
wins.
is the new advanced, more attractive Redford.
No.
I mean, new attractive, more Newman.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Newman's got the
That's
eyes.
what they tried. They tried to play off that in Spy Game, which was not a great movie, but it
No.
was a fine movie
But
starring Robert Redford and Brad Pitt.
but I would argue that Ocean's 11.
I think
is-
I would take. I like George Clooney. I would take a Newman over a Clooney.
No, Redford.
Charm-wise,
Redford is
any
the
day of the
Cluman.
week.
Redford's
I know,
the
but
Cluman.
that's the Cluman.
the Cluman.
Redford is not the Clooney. Redford is the Pitt.
No,
They
No.
look exactly
Paul
the same.
Newman is the Pitt.
No,
Yeah.
no.
no, you're wrong, Seth.
You're super wrong.
Okay. No,
Newman.
Negative.
I will take Jeremiah Johnson, Redford, even over Brad Pitt, and I'm drawn to Brad Pitt. But
No.
yeah, I'm going Redford Newman.
I could see Redford. That's true. A young Robert Redford does look like Brad Pitt. I'll give you that. But I still think Newman is more accurate.
No. Denied.
It's
Newman.
crazy. Even in their roles, Newman, like Clooney's the
Yeah.
Newman.
Yeah.
It's hard because Clooney
Clooney's
is.
the Newman.
So you're right. This is my super
like-
shallow.
Clooney's charming.
He's like the "Oh brother,
He's
where art
charming.
thou?"
But Paul
and
Newman
like
is in better shape
the
than
cool
Robert
hand
Redford.
Luke. Yeah.
Paul Newman is in better shape than Robert Redford.
Yeah, Paul Newman's better shape than all of them.
Yeah.
No. Brad Pitt is better shape.
Well,
than,
not than Brad Pitt. of
Brad
course.
Pitt's the better in shape always than
Brad Pitt
anyone.
Fight Club is.
No, Brad Pitt in Fight Club, Brad Pitt in Troy, Brad Pitt in all the other movies where he takes his shirt off. Show me a Brad Pitt with his shirt off that isn't gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is none of these guys are in the movie we watched.
No.
But actually, speaking of that,
Yeah.
I mean, now that we're on the topic of
Maybe they should have
Warren
been.
Beatty. No
Of-
shirtless Warren Beatty.
of the male body, no, but like in his little tank top scene, I thought this guy's in good shape.
Yeah.
He better be. He's young, man.
Yeah, he was like 12.
Like it was like muscles, right? Like at
Yeah.
a time where it's not like everyone was, had definition. It was like, no, that guy's got muscles.
Yeah. Agreed.
I was into it.
I'm literally looking up Warren Beatty hot.
He wasn't into it.
I looked up Warren Beatty hot, and the first thing was that
The
one
tank
with the
tops.
tank top. That's the first picture that came up on the images.
It's not gonna be Dick Tracy.
There's no
No.
Dick Tracy pics.
It's just him in that movie. That's all it is. He was pretty cut. That was not bad. All right.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Fit dude.
Yeah. So that's I'll give Warren Beatty that. So Warren Beatty.
So
He did get a song, you guys. Come on.
Okay, so this movie French inspired, new Hollywood, changed the films, and there would be no Robert Redford, Paul Newman without this. Sorry, guys. But without this blazing the trail, you wouldn't have your top 10 movie. I'm sorry, Mariah.
I
Wolf
mean,
is a different
there's an
kind of
argument
movie.
that the movie had been sort of being written or something. Hey, nice mirrored drinking there, guys. I'm guessing
Every time.
Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid didn't start its process after this movie debuted, having come out only 2 years later. But sure, Seth, I'll give you it.
But this movie
I think
started
the
how many
violence-
years before this came out? Let's be real.
I'm pretty sure these
Yeah,
guys were
I think-
already known before Butch and Sundance
I think the
came out.
on-screen portrayal of violence in American movies changed drastically after this movie in ways that largely I certainly enjoy. The use of squibs. The fact
Oh,
that I'm
yeah,
saying
so
squibs
You
on
said
this podcast,
squibs
I'm very
so
excited
many
about.
times.
So excited.
Very excited about
Squib
exploding,
dropping.
condoms full of fake blood.
So good.
Brings me back to my infatuation with movie magic on Stars
Yes.
in my childhood.
Yes.
Learning about how did they do that set piece on Demolition Man,
Oh, good for
starring
you.
Sylvester Stallone.
Good for you.
Loved it.
See, and
How did they crash that helicopter in Cliffhanger?
I was watching all
Again,
the
starring
biographies
Sylvester
on
Stallone.
A&E about all the
So
actors.
good.
I was doing my Wikipedia
watching
search
Movie
before
Magic.
there was Wikipedia.
It's amazing.
Yeah, squibs.
It's amazing. Yeah. No, it's good stuff. I think when I watched this movie, it was fun to relive the moment in history where things changed. Because
Things
this
got
feels
real violent.
This feels so racy even now. But not like
that's not-
but not like a TV show racy. We're not talking like Game of Thrones racy, but like a pretty suggestive movie. You would barely see that today because movies are so tame these days, ironically enough.
That was my hot take. Like, I was like, are they really going to show me this right now? Because
Yeah.
it had set up context that it was then like subverting in ways that were like pretty interesting to me. And honestly, just by nature of it being an older movie, kind of did some of that. But, I'm watching it as me now, and I thought, whoa, wow, like,
Yeah, where are we going with this?
what's happening?
It's definitely that point where you're like, oh, I should have been watching this movie on the laptop in the other room, not on the main TV of the house. Like, this is one
There
of those,
was definitely,
I made
like-
an error in judgment. I hope my kid doesn't come in now.
Apparently 50
The
Shades of
opening
Grey is
scene,
about
I
sex.
thought.
But he did catch the
Like,
Willy Wonka
oh.
part. He's like, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold up.
Is that Willy Wonka? Yes, it is.
Okay. Dare I say, this started.
You dare.
I dare. Movies today are not as racy as they were for us growing up.
Because it's all on HBO and Stars.
No, for real. TV shows are scary.
Yeah, the shows are.
the shows are racy.
Yeah.
But movies are not.
Yeah, I suppose not. I mean,
Depends
yeah,
on what you're
I guess
watching.
you're right. I don't know. Yeah, it depends on what you're watching.
Well, think
Yeah.
about the movies that came out.
Touching about
Mainstream
Mainstream
movies
movies
are not as racy.
are not, like, it was basic.
Mainstream
instinct
shows are.
when I was in high
Yeah.
school. It was all sorts
Pretty
of
racy.
R-rated movies that are super racy.
Oh yeah, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon.
I mean, those are not even that racy, but I hear what you're saying. Their names sound racy.
Violent.
They sound
I
violent.
Violent.
mean,
I'm
there's
talking
some
about the
nudity happening in Lethal Weapon.
Because you either have horror movies or you have family pictures or you have a superhero movie. I don't know what else there is now. So
Well, and even honestly, in horror movies, there's certainly when we were growing up too, there was this like moral take on all the stuff happening, right? Like people who died had done some moral.
yes, they usually did something wrong. They're the
Right,
one who
they
had
had
sex.
sex,
The one who had
they-
sex
whatever.
is the
Yeah,
one who
it's
died.
always
Drugs.
the were you the virgin or were you the
Yeah.
So it still had this weirdly, religious perspective in a way of like,
Oh, for
you
sure.
have brought this on yourself, you immoral teenager.
Well, absolutely.
Now Jason's gonna chop you in half
Yeah.
and put you in a sleeping bag and stack you under a tree.
She's topless. She's a gunner.
Yes. Which Cabin in the Woods built on very well. Good movie.
For sure.
Yeah, I have a couple more, I think, fun facts before maybe we wrap up, if that's okay.
Let's do it.
Please.
Also, I guess it's not even a fun fact, and I mentioned it earlier, but did you notice how many hats they ruined?
No.
Like, those don't form back into shape, as far as I can tell.
That's
Warren
funny.
Beatty.
Well, where are they getting all
just
these
wrecked
clothes in
those
general?
hats.
They
Yeah.
just rob a bank and go straight to the haberdashery and like.
It seemed
pick out-
like they just must have robbed a clothing store or something.
Yeah.
'Cause that's how he's robbing that grocery store. You sure you don't have other pies? And he almost got cleaved. Anyway,
That's pretty funny.
so many ruined hats. So many ruined hats. It really struck me. The mother, not a good actress. The mother of Bonnie's character.
Yes.
They apparently just picked out.
in
She's
Texas.
a school teacher watching filming while they were doing the family scene already.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, wait, you didn't have an actress
That's
to be
crazy.
the mom yet?
Yeah.
And
She's
they're like,
such
that
an
lady
important
looks
point.
old.
Stop
Yeah, and
it.
she was not a good actress,
No.
but that's how
She
apparently
didn't have a
they
lot
picked her.
to say. That's
no.
fine.
No,
That's crazy. That's a
no.
good one.
So that was one, and then oh yeah, the other one I thought was fun. Apparently, for like the action scenes where there's gunshots and stuff, Warren Beatty wanted it to be louder, so like the
Real
violence
guns.
would be louder.
Yes.
And then apparently, he was at a screening in London, and he noticed it was softer. He went to the projection booth. Oh, and he was influenced by the movie Shane, who did something
Yes.
similar.
Yes.
He went up to the projection booth, and the guy was like, "Don't worry, I fixed it by adjusting the audio." And he's like, "I haven't seen a worse mix since the movie Shane." I thought, that's
Like, don't worry, I
pretty
got
funny.
this.
That's great.
Yeah, I fixed your movie, guy. Those are my fun facts. Otherwise, I
Those are
covered
good.
That's pretty good.
Though I had a few that you didn't cover. One of them being Roger Ebert had only been a film critic for 6 months,
6 months,
when he
that's
saw
right.
this and hailed it as the first masterpiece he'd seen on the job.
Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah.
masterpiece.
Masterpiece,
Yeah.
he called it.
Just finished reading his book. That was a good one too.
Oh. And then the other one I had was the cinematographer, Guffey,
Yes.
argued with Arthur Penn the whole time about how things were being shot.
Yep.
And he ended up getting the Oscar.
And Penn told him that actually. Penn literally said, "Just do it this way. I'm going to win you an Oscar," and he was right. So good. Let's see. A couple things. Trying to think of all the things that were pretty fun. People who were cast before Warren Beatty.
Oh, yeah. I didn't hear anything about the other lead Clyde guys.
One was his buddy Jack Nicholson. He was one of the options. The other one was where was it? I've been I wrote this down. That's all gone. Jack Nicholson, of course, and too far. Michael J. Pollard. Don't know who that is.
Well, that's who played CW in this movie.
Oh, that's hilarious. That wouldn't work at all. Huh.
Well, honestly, I think he looks a little bit more like the real Clyde.
Yeah, for sure.
Real Clyde was not super handsome.
No, and neither was
Oh,
Bonnie.
Bob Dylan. I remember somebody
Bob
wanted
Dylan.
Bob
That's
Dylan.
what it was. No, Warren Beatty wanted Bob Dylan, wasn't
Yes.
it? Yeah.
And then apparently
Interesting.
Michael Pollard based his performance on Bob Dylan
Oh, that's great.
in this movie.
That's great.
Yes, I did see Bob Dylan because apparently Bob Dylan looked a lot like the real Clyde.
Yeah, that's true. How you guys
Oh,
feel about
Terrence Stamp also, or Paul Newman.
How'd you guys
when it was true
Paul
true
Newman? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about the soundtrack, by the way?
What soundtrack?
foe. Indifferent.
Very, yeah. It was
Very banjo-y.
Apparently
Very
anachronistic, but
Yeah.
people liked it.
You know, it was better.
And it puts you in a time and a place.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Inaccurately, but
Butch and Sundance had a better soundtrack.
I don't disagree.
Especially
I do
the
have to say,
bicycle scene.
This is a good car movie. If you're a car guy, this is a good car movie.
That's another fun fact is all these cars were lent by some collection person, and the only thing he said was don't shoot them.
Did they shoot them?
Well, not the ones that they'd been lent.
yeah, I don't think so.
Like, you can drive it through a field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah,
cars are amazing.
how durable were those
I can't imagine
cars?
how hard it was to drive some of those things.
Oh.
There's no power steering in any of these cars.
Well, you had to lift up the hood to turn it on. You're
you
still
gotta, like,
cranking
crank
most
that
of these.
stuff.
Yeah.
And they had the actual car that they drove. They had the 1934 V8 Ford, which is pretty cool.
They painted a different color because it was more olive green, which they did do in the Highwayman. It was more accurate. Because they wanted to make sure the bullet holes
you could be seen. Yeah, that's clever. Yeah, that's good stuff. That was pretty cool. Yeah. This movie, I feel like when I watched this movie and reading the book about the movie, I felt like I knew more about the history of movies, because this was like a linchpin that brought two eras together, and it exposed Hollywood for being the fraud it was becoming, because Hollywood was no longer the voice of the people.
Classic.
Which is so good. That's why I feel like this movie and The Graduate, we haven't talked about The Graduate, but The Graduate and this movie kind of exposed Hollywood for the kind of the two-faced, not actual reality that it was.
Well, yeah, they just had an equation that they'd been running with for so long. And it was weird because these people, is that what I'm thinking?
and the crazy part is these are the people that like built Hollywood, because Hollywood wasn't that old at the time. It was 40 years old. They only been giving away the Academy Award for 40 years. And so when they did the Academy Awards in 1968, it felt so awkward because it was all the old Hollywood people. Like, let's just set the picture. Martin Luther King Jr. died 4 days ago. They delay it finally. And the first person actually like says, we've lost a great human, great individual, great American. And then Bob Hope makes these awkward jokes about, can't believe it's delayed so long. Just awkward. You should watch it. It's just, people are groaning. And then they have all these like kind of cutaways of like amazing moments of film. And they cut away to, frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn. But they don't cut to that scene. They cut to the scene where the Confederate flag is flying. Just so cringe. Ooh. But the best moment of that was, even Dustin Hoffman, no one looks happy at this awards ceremony. No one looks happy. But Dustin Hoffman presented an award. The cinematographer, he won. Everyone cheered for him. The best moment was in the heat of the night. The guy who was starring across from Sidney Poitier. Because the coolest moment in that movie, if you haven't seen it, guys, is they slap Sidney Poitier's character, who's black, in case you didn't know. But then Sidney slapped the white guy back. Mm-hmm. And that was like this amazing moment of film. And so the actor who won it was the white guy who played across from Sidney Poitier. And he had the best speech. He's like, I could not have done this without Sidney. And we will overcome. Quoting Martin Luther King Jr. And that was like the one moment the whole audience like just exploded. Because this is like, you still had, that's what's her name? Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn was the last movie together with Look Who's Coming to Dinner. Oh, yeah. With also Sidney Poitier. Mm. So it was just this crazy cultural moment where you had this movie, you had old Hollywood with Rex Harrison playing Dr. Dolittle, which everybody hated, but still got Academy Awards because they basically bought their way to get some Okay, anymore.
I mean, it brought me some joy as a child.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, there were animals, Seth. Some
Yeah.
people like animals.
Yeah.
It's a pretty funny.
And ostriches ran around.
You should read some.
Yeah.
You should read some stories about that because they had some hilarious. They went to England and then realized they couldn't bring any of the animals, so they had to start training animals in England, and then they had to come back to America. It was just a mess. And Rex Harrison was horrible to everybody because he's Rex Harrison. Just good times. But this is a very fun time where we get to actually see the cultural shift in one award ceremony, which is very
I think
fun.
that's the appreciation I have is that for the time and all like the cinematic changes and the rating changes and there's
Well,
it's
and
a
all
big
of this
shift.
was basically pushing the Dennis Hoppers and the Scorseses
Yeah.
and the
Easy
Coppolas
rider.
and the Spielbergs.
David Lynch's.
Yeah. This is also the beginning of people
The
starting
George
to
Lucas
use
even was
exactly
inspired by
right.
this.
Yeah.
This is literally the beginning of film school. No one took film school seriously until this time in history. It just started everything that we know as film.
Kurosawa really liked this movie.
Of course, Kurosawa
It's
did.
in his top
freaking
100.
Kurosawa, baby. Mm-hmm.
But it did kick off, like you were saying, Seth, this generational shift of like the idea that you don't have to go through the studio system to get a movie made.
Yeah.
Even. Right, like anything, like the fact that we all have cameras on our phones was a different revolution, and the accessibility at each of these stages is always important. But there was a huge one here where it was like, hey, you can self-finance some little indie thing if you want.
Yes, exactly right.
And people started doing it.
Yep.
Yeah. And eventually they were breakthrough hits that won.
That's right. That's right. Oh, good one, guys. Anyways, thanks for taking this journey with me. This was a fun one. I didn't know what to expect if I like it or not. I knew it was a cultural moment, but then watching it was a whole kind of a fun thing because Dick Tracy, Chocolate in the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka, Gene Hackman, and all over 1,000 movies he's been in. It's funny to look back at those, like one of their first movies for all these guys. That kind of made them.
And
it's
Gene
just this
Hackman
weird thing.
looks the same age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like the Robert Duvall.
That's perfect. I was just editing
I was
that
like, I
episode.
know, and I was like,
just
oh,
editing
yeah.
that episode.
He has
That's
had
so
the
funny.
comb
Literally
over since he was 5.
50-year career, and you're like, yeah, that basically still looks exactly like Gene Hackman.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's like Jean-Luc
Warren
Picard,
Beatty
too.
aged a little.
Yeah.
Still looks good.
Yeah.
But like
Warren Beatty still looks good.
Gene Hackman, you'd be like, wait, are you 40? Are you
90.
20? How old are you?
Yeah.
don't know.
It's like John C. Reilly, you know?
Ah, John C. Reilly.
How
Yes.
old are you? Philip Seymour
That high
Hoffman.
forehead with some curls. Ageless.
Ageless.
Yeah.
Shake and bake.
Yeah. I did like this movie, but it took, similar to you, Mariah, I think it took me a bit to be like, do I like this movie?
Yeah.
And I think in the end, I was like, or at least I appreciate the
Yeah.
movie.
I appreciate.
But it wasn't a hard watch.
No, not in the
Yeah, I
end.
don't know if I'll watch it again.
No.
Unless I want to watch it with someone else. Like,
I'll watch the end scene probably again. Maybe
you're-
like
Jeez, morbid.
I want to
I
see
did
him
love
like,
that. Just honestly, this is a hard cut to the end. Even that kind of stuff. You're like,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
great ending.
Yeah.
Imagine being in the theater with a bunch of people and that happens. You're like,
Whoa.
Whoa.
Oh, just.
I knew it was gonna end. I didn't
That
know it was
would-
gonna end like
what a
that.
great walk out of the theater.
That
Yeah.
would be a good reaction piece. People reacting to the end of Bonnie and Clyde. That would be a great reaction
Yeah.
on YouTube. We should get on that, guys.
That
Well, especially when
one-
people
I'm
didn't really know.
Yeah.
Should I get my 6-year-old daughter? Dottie, here,
Sure.
watch this.
Absolutely. Let's get all the cousins
For people
together.
who had no idea about Bonnie and Clyde, which is probably way more true at the time, right? Like that ending, you'd be like,
What the heck? Yeah, you just started getting
Holy
to know
cow.
them. You started like connect with them.
it's
They-
as-
they
it's as
dead.
The Departed.
Think of how many
or,
people had to go to the library
funny you
after
talked about
this
the
and go, is
Infernal
that how the
Affairs.
real thing
The
was?
Departed got a lot of influence from this, by the way. That's funny you mentioned that because they do reference this movie a lot, actually. So the Departed
just a
did take a lot
shocking
from it.
murder.
Yep.
You go, dang.
Cha-ching. All right, guys. Hey, guys. Hollywood's changing, and who knows? It might change again. So this has been a fun little journey. See, those French New Wave films we watched, who knew? They
Paid
had
off.
a purpose.
Paid off.
They had a purpose.
I'd rewatch those two first, maybe.
Yeah, well, maybe. We'll see. Next Godard movie. I got to make it one more mention of movies. One of the movies that got, was it the Sight and Sound top movie of the year? Was Ingmar Bergman's Persona, which apparently nobody watched that year. Nobody.
Aww.
But it was so like, they rather give it to Persona than Bonnie and Clyde just because it was like, they didn't want to give props to America yet. Because no one in the world trusted American cinema yet. They didn't believe that we could actually have good cinema yet because they've been so burned by us for the last decade. So that was a fun kind of like, they almost gave it to Bonnie and Clyde because it did really well overseas, but they still gave it to Persona, which apparently is still top movie. Anyways, that was
taking a look at Persona. It looks very artsy.
Very artsy.
Very snobby.
People said, like, I don't know what the point is, but I guess I'm supposed to like it because it's like, it's fancy or artsy or
Yeah, it's black. It's black and white.
Oh,
It's
no.
Ingmar Bergman. It's got to be good. So, anyways, on that note, guys, this is a fun, very popular, but I would argue still very snobby and very important piece of American history, if not world cinema history. Bonnie and Clyde, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch it if you want to.
Sure, do it.
Yeah, if you want.
Or don't. It's
Go
fine.
We
ahead.
spoiled it.
Yeah.
We did.
Kinda.
Ruined it
We gave you the best.
yet again. Guys, my name's Seth.
Mariah.
Pat. I don't know.
It's Patrick. What's your middle name? I forgot.
David.
No,
No,
it's
you did
not.
not.
Is it David?
It is.
Shut up.
Yes.
We have the same middle name. That's embarrassing.
Yes, we have the same middle name,
Patrick
cousin.
David.
Based off the
you'd
same
think you
person.
know
Patrick
that.
David's legit. You should just go back.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, this is Patrick David here. That's a
I was
legit
supposed
name.
to. I was supposed to be Patrick
That's-
David.
You could be a Patrick David still.
Yeah.
I
I'd say
know.
that.
So is Laura.
Then Laura.
Petey the
Took
second.
third time's the charm.
Yeah, finally they got
Yeah,
what they
no,
wanted.
Patrick David
Finally.
is in. I'm in trouble, so I can't
Yeah.
go by
Patrick David's legit. Just for the record, folks, my name is Seth David, and that is the name of my company, which films weddings. So there we go, guys. This is Seth David with Patrick David and the wannabe
Patrick
David.
David.
Mariah David. No,
No.
just kidding.
JK. Love you guys. Keep watching movies. Keep trying to be a movie snob, and we'll see you next week on How to Be a Movie Snob. Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Squib, 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 squib. He just keeps going.
That's what they did.
That's a good way.
That's what
They
they
did a
did.
lot.